I'd like to get that referred to the Rules Committee right away.
So we want to make a reference to the Rules Committee?
Right, it's a standing committee, so I'm just making a reference.
And Alderman Holmes, Alderman Rainey, members of the committee, we share Alderman Holmes, Alderman Rainey's concerns about a policy needed for those mailings. So we'll plan to have your next rules meeting, which will be in August.
Okay, thank you. There is a rules meeting in August?
At this point, I believe there still is. There will not be a rules meeting next week.
There's no one.
Oh, the July one, because I saw the memo, there won't be July, June.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's scheduled on our calendar for Monday.
Yes, the rules meeting for July has been canceled. The one in August, I'm sorry, I misspoke. The one in August, we've asked that there be a full council meeting in place of rules. If you'd like, we could bring it back to Administration of Public Works, given the fact that... Okay, so I think that at this point, unless the council chooses to have a August meeting at another time other than the regular meeting, it would be in September.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Sure, I don't want to have a special meeting for that.
Okay, very good. So we'll have it at your September committee. This would also include, in addition to the postcards, some policies regarding newsletters. Many aldermen have electronic newsletters, and we think it would be important to have a policy on timing and issues such as that. So we're going to put that all together and bring it to rules, and we'll bring it in September.
Fantastic, thank you. A3.1, approval of agreement with MWH Americas Incorporated for the engineering study for water supply transmission main to the potential new wholesale water customers, RFP 12-131. Staff recommends the City Council authorize the City Manager to execute an agreement for an engineering study for a water supply transmission main to potential new wholesale water customers with the MWH Americas Incorporated in the not-to-exceed amount of $149,800. Funding for the Evanston portion of the agreement is in the amount of $21,400, will be from the Water Fund, account number 7125.6218. Evanston's partners in this study will reimburse the balance of the funding. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Any comments?
It was interesting how tight the bids were, between $148,000 and $150,000, so that always gives you confidence when something is happening that you know nothing about, but everybody wanted to charge the same amount. So I thought that was very, very good. And also, I thought the committee reviewing the proposals was very impressive, led by our very own Dave Stoneback.
Okay, it's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I didn't catch the vote on the bills.
It was 4-0. I mean, yes, I'm sorry, 4.
Really passed.
A3.2, approval of contract with the Badger Meters Incorporated for the 2012 water meter purchase bid number 12-138.
Second.
Okay, I should say it's in the amount of $64,090.10. The funding will be from the Water Fund account 0.65070, and the account 7125.65080, and with the allocations of $85,000 for funding year 2012. It's been moved and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? A3.3, approval of contract with the Palatine Oil Company Incorporated for 2012 fuel purchases. Staff recommends that the City Council authorize the City Manager to execute a contract for the last 6 months of fiscal year 2012 fuel purchases in the amount of $500,000 from the Palatine Oil Company Incorporated. The Palatine Oil Company is the new Northwest Municipal Conference bid winner for all grades and types of fuel that are utilized by the city vehicles. Is there a motion?
Second.
Moved in second. All in favor? I'm sorry, Alderman Rainey.
Is Suzette here? Robinson? Anyway, it says in the...
right here.
Hi, Suzette. It says in the attached Suburban Purchasing Cooperative contract information that it says, please review the attached price list, which is based on blah, 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 Opus low published price per gallon dated May 4th. We didn't get that information, so while we saw some totals, is there a big difference between the price of the various categories of gas for June through December than the January to June? We didn't get that.
Good evening. Ronnie Jeske, Fleet Manager, Madam Chair, Alderman Rainey. The fuel prices are down at this time. They were up back in the fall and winter of last month, but they are now down again. This contract through the Northwest Municipal Conference bid was based on what they call the Opus price range. And Opus is nothing more, it's called the Oil Price Information System. And Opus doesn't control the market, they report on the pricing. And the conference bid is based on what they call a low rack price on any given week. So that's the price contract.
It fluctuates, is what you're trying to say, right?
I'm sorry?
It fluctuates.
That is correct.
Definitely, I understood that. What I'm really interested in knowing is the markup amount. It says that it's going to remain firm, but how can I know that the Northwest Municipal Conference probably goes through all sorts of changes coming up with the low bidder. But how can those of us at home look at something like this and know how this compares to last year or the year before? I mean, there's no way for us to know because it's just all words. And somebody had to have made a decision that going with this company was a better deal than going with another company. But we don't know what that was based on. You see what I'm saying? Nowhere in here are there those numbers.
Okay. What I did put in there, though, was the fuel prices, the present-day fuel prices versus what they were in calendar year 2011. But again, that fluctuates with the old price.
Why was this firm chosen? Why?
One more time, I'm sorry?
Why was Palatine? Why were they chosen?
Because they were the low bid, there's a markup over the net low rack value of the Opus.
How do we know what were those? We don't know that.
I don't know.
Somebody knew because the Northwest Conference chose these people.
We can get that information.
I think we should. I mean, I would just like to see what this is all based on. We keep being told that the Northwest Municipal Conference was the low bid, chose the low bid, but we don't. And then sometimes our staff will say, and just to make sure, we went out and we checked around for some prices of fire trucks or whatever. But in this case, we don't. So it has nothing to do with tonight, but I think going forward, it would be nice to know. So.
We'll do that. Get that information back.
Okay, it's been moved and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? A3.4, approval of the contract with infrastructure management services for comprehensive pavement condition evaluation and right-of-way asset management. Staff recommends that the City Council authorize the City Manager to execute a contract with Infrastructure Management Services in the amount of $139,708.50 for payment condition evaluation and right-of-way asset management. Funding will be provided by the Capital Improvement Program, account number 415921, which has a budget of $200,000. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Moved and second. All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Braithwaite. Missed you. You're not using your board, so I'm looking at the light. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just reading this
First off, I wasn't concerned about the evaluation when I read more and I saw about the truck and what the truck's capabilities are, so I just wanted to hear just a few high-level details from Director Robinson about the whole evaluation process.
Good evening, Madam Chair, committee members. Suzette Robinson, Director of Public Works. As the memo indicated, we will actually go out and evaluate the equipment will evaluate all the primary routes and all the residential streets within Evanston. And they look at the age, they look at subsurface conditions, the topical conditions. They look at the last time the street was resurfaced. So we give them a lot of backup data, and then they rate the pavement throughout. And from that rating, it basically will tell us which streets we should resurface first. So we bring all that information back to council with our staff recommendations, and then we take input from city council in terms of what they would like to see in terms of priority in establishing the 5-year resurfacing plan.
Alderman Glover. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Director Robinson. This is not expertise, engineering, or otherwise that we have in-house to do this work?
That is absolutely correct. We do not have the equipment to do the rating.
Alderman Rainey?
Suzette, did we live up to our 5-year plan, the priorities set forth in the previous 5-year plan?
We had a few diversions, and those diversions were really based on plan developments that may have pushed a street resurfacing to the top of the list. We completed our 5-year plan in 6 years. And I think the last of the streets that were part of that original plan are happening this year. So it was a 6-year plan. So
We had the capacity. Well, that was really my question. We had the capacity to complete it all.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
That's good.
Anything else? Okay. It's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
A3.5, approval of emergency contract with PBR Chicago for North Cultural Arts Center Northeast Chimney Repair. Emergency repair work in the amount of $23,785 was authorized on June 13th, 2012 by City Manager for the northeast chimney of the North Cultural Arts Center. Staff recommends award of this contract for emergency repairs. Funding is provided by the Capital Improvement Program, 415-663, with a total budget of $120,000. Okay.
This isn't something that happens overnight unless something ran into the chimney, and I don't think that happened. So how did it get to this point? And was it in our capital plan? I know the rest of the building is going to be worked on, but how did this get to this point where it became an emergency?
Madam Chair, and the members of the committee, Paul D'Agostino, Superintendent of Parks, Forestry, and Facilities Management. Part of the answer to that question is yes, all of the chimneys and roofing were part of the capital improvement plan. They were to be funded, I believe, initially in the current year, but then it got pushed to next year. So there are things in the CIP to address these problems.
But it couldn't have been singled out earlier, so, I mean, it didn't just happen overnight.
No, it did not happen overnight, but we weren't aware of the intensity of the problem until about 4 months ago, when we did a re-inspection of all the chimneys and found that it was actively leaking substantially.
And according to the report, this doesn't have to be redone. I mean, this will be permanent with...
That's correct. This will be a permanent repair and not part of next year's plan.
Is that okay?
Yeah, if we discovered it 4 months ago, and there was an emergency. sounds like it needs a
It's done some damage, but nothing that can't be repaired once we fix the problem.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. A3.6, approval of contract for purchase of one replacement engine from the Pierce Manufacturing for the Evanston Fire and Safety Services, Life and Safety Services. Staff recommends City Council approval to purchase one replacement engine for the Evanston Fire and Life Safety Services as follows. Pierce Manufacturing Company in the amount of $578,238. Funding is provided by the Equipment Replacement Fund, account number 7780.65550, using the Northwest Municipal Conference Suburban Purchasing Cooperative Competitive Bid. Is there a motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Alderman Rainey.
Madam Chairman, whenever we talk to the fire department, and they talk about their vehicles, everything's called something different. Something is called an engine, something's called a truck. They all look like trucks to me. So could somebody explain exactly what an engine does as opposed to a truck? I mean, I know the ladder is the ladder. Perfect question.
Good evening.
What's an engine?
This is an engine which is a pumper. It's referred to as a pumper in the fire service. It carries the water and the hoses to suppress the fires.
I know just what you're talking about. Thank you.
Are they going to do it?
Sure. I mean, yeah. If they had said pumper, I didn't know exactly.
Alderman, this will also replace, as the assistant manager reminded me, this will also replace an engine pumper that is also responds with ALS equipment to the scene as first responders.
Okay. Anything else? All right, it's been moved in second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Moving on to A3.7, approval of the single-source purchase of street furniture from the landscape forms of Church Street, 4th Church Street, Hartree Avenue, and the Lorraine Morton Civic Center. Staff recommends City Council approval of purchase of street furniture items from landscape forms in the amount of $227,689. Funding will be provided by the Washington National TIF in the amount of $118,689. The Howard Hartree TIF in the amount of $22,185, and the General Fund Street Maintenance Account 2670.65055 in the amount of $7,830. Is there a motion? Moved and second. Are there any questions? If not, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? A4. Approval of change order for the extension of the utility bills print and mail services with the Third Millennium Associates Incorporated. Staff recommends that the City Council authorize the City Manager to execute change order number 1 for a 1-year extension with the Third Millennium Associates Incorporated in the amount of $17,827.98 to provide utility bill printing and mailing services at the same pricing as obtained in June of 2009. The funding will be from the Water and the Sewer Fund in the accounts of 7125.6245 and account 7400.62455, which has a total combined budget allocation of $19,600 for funding year 2012.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Any? Okay. Alderman Rainey.
So this is another one of those kinds of services where I wonder if there isn't a business in Evanston that could bid on this, or something more local. I don't know if we have a place like this, or if we do they have the capacity? But I'm just curious. Not for this, but when the year is up, let's hopefully our staff and the MWEBE committee will focus on some of these purchases.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
See, look in the catalog that we produced, that some of us have never seen,
Yeah.
that has Evanston businesses.
We have a very interesting report coming to council that I think you'll
Can't
be
wait.
amazed. So thank you for bringing attention to this bill.
Again.
Thank you.
Okay, it's been moved in second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Moving on to A5. Approval of request for proposal 12-142, depository and various or other banking services. Staff recommends that the City Council authorize the City Manager to distribute a request for a proposal for banking services. These services will include all payroll, accounts payable, and optional investment services. Is there a motion?
Move approval. Second.
Been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, A6, Resolution 28-R-12, authorizing the city manager to sign a City of Evanston Community Public Arts Program agreement with Kovanik and Bro Art Design LLC for artwork at the Sherman Garage. The Public Art Committee recommends approval of $75,000 commission for the artist team up, and I'm not going to try the name again, to create a new work of public art at the Sherman Plaza Garage entitled A Search and Effect. Funding for this project will be provided through the percent for the art program by the Washington National TIF Fund Number 4. Is there a motion?
Second.
Been moved and second. Alderman Rainey.
Do we have any kind of visual presentation on this project?
We had one before. We had one, what was it, 2 months ago? I don't think they planned one tonight. At least nobody said it. Here comes the city manager, though.
I saw pictures in our packet.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, we have the ability to put up, I believe, what's in the staff report, which we can put on the screen. This was inappropriately placed on this committee's agenda. It had come out of Human Services and was inadvertently placed here. We thought not to make a deal of it because it was already on your agenda, but we'd be happy if Mr. Gaynor, Mr. Corey was here, and we can bring up and put that up. Perhaps, I think it looks like we may need a minute or two, so perhaps, Madam Chair, if you wanted to do an item or two and then come back to this.
So is that where it was shown in Human
Yes.
Services? Oh, because I've never seen it.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, yes, it was in Human Services.
And the Human Services Committee approved it to send it to council. There was a delay because of the demonstration to have all members of the council go out and take a look at it. We had that occur, and then this came back on. It should have gone directly back to council.
Sorry.
But if you'd like, we can, are we ready in a moment or two, or shall we come to a different item? Madam Chair, maybe you could take an item or two and then come back?
Just hold this and come back.
Because we do have some visuals, and Mr. Corey can explain it.
Okay,
I
fine.
mean, I've heard that I'm going to love it, but
Yeah, you will. It really is.
I mean, it sounds exactly, I mean, I know that I will. Because I saw it in our packet.
There it is.
What we had.
It's there already.
So this is the PowerPoint that was presented at the Human Services. So it's on each level of the garage. Mr. Corey, why don't you join me? Because you can speak.
Does it
the artist can speak. Madam Chair, members of the committee, the artist is here, and perhaps rather than the city manager who knows next to nothing about this, the artist who can see this can come up and speak a few words.
And it does change it.
Yeah, it is what I read on.
Do you want me to take you through this, or? Briefly. Let's see. So, I mean, we were looking to magnify the impact with a $75,000 budget, so I was really interested in this 12-story building in terms of symbolizing the inhabitation of the building. So you're looking at the southwest corner of the building facing south. And these inscriptions do not change, but
What does change is that they are being highlighted by spotlights, which are being motion activated by people who are using the building. And on the other side, which is facing west, the street name is, I believe, Benson.
Benson.
Right. As the elevators move up and down behind the glass curtain wall, spotlights are located on top. They give you a sense of this sort of symbolic idea of searching as the elevator's moving up and down. And when the elevators reach the ground floor, you see on the left-hand side that words which are behind the glass will become silhouetted as shadows and reveal ideas about creativity in terms of the outcomes of creativity. The upper right-hand corner shows you one of, I guess you'd call it a sky lobby that faces to the south, so someone could step within the beam that's being activated by their motion and cast a shadow so that kind of in a performative way their body will appear on the panels. And in the elevators are inscriptions on the glass that you look out through over the landscape to sort of contextualize the way that you look at the landscape. So, it's just a really heightened inhabitation of the building, make people very aware of diverse creativity that we're all involved in. So this is looking at the two facades. On the left is the west-facing facade, thinking about both the elevators and the facade at ground level. And on the right-hand side, these large icons that face to the south, which again are motion activated and spotlighted as people move into the lobbies on the upper floors. And floor plan and so on.
How long after we approve the purchase here, will you install it?
We could fast track this in 16 weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
16? So be ready for the holidays.
That could happen.
Okay, Alderman Grover.
I did take advantage of the opportunity to view a demonstration of the light that moved up and down from the top of the elevator cabin. I got to say, in comparison to Chicago's most recent art installation in a very busy intersection in downtown Chicago, which involved covering buildings and lampposts and the intersection of the pavement with paint, this is actually quite subtle. And I expected it to be even bigger, and I think it probably could still be bigger and brighter, but it'll be, I think, a great addition to our downtown.
Thanks.
So thank you to the member of the, David Forte and Jeff, who came with me to see this demonstration, but it's a great project.
It's just fascinating. Yeah, I love it. But I wasn't at the demonstration, so I just really wanted to see it.
Okay. So that's pretty much it.
So are you available for other locations? I mean,
Of course. But this is just showing the kinds of icons and the text that would appear in different areas.
All of this will be custom done for this Evanston location. So
Definitely.
icons you see here in the mock-up are not necessarily what we will be seeing in Evanston.
Right.
At the
We
show.
intend to conduct outreach to develop the actual text content of it.
Right.
concept, right. Move approval, Madam Chair?
Okay, it's been moved. Second? Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you.
Moving along to A7, Resolution 50-R-12 by authorizing the use of motor fuel tax funds for the additional roadway resurfacing project. Staff recommends City Council approve Resolutions 50-R-12, authorizing the use of motor fuel tax funds in the amount of $300,000 for the 2012 additional street resurfacing project. Funding for this project is provided by the Motor Fuel Funding Tax Fund, number 200. Is motion? Moved and second. Any, Alderman Grover?
Just to bring to your attention that on the memo, that there is a correction. The memo states that of the additional sections to be resurfaced for Washington Street, it says between Asbury Avenue to Dodge Avenue, but it's correct from Asbury Avenue to Ridge Avenue. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, A8, Resolution 51-R-12, authorizing the city manager to execute a letter of understanding for the lease of 727 through 729 Howard Street for City Lit Theater Company. Staff recommends approval of Resolution 51-R-12, authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute a second letter of understanding between the City of Evanston and the City Lit Theater for the consideration of a lease-to-own agreement at city-owned property at 727, 729 Howard Street. This second letter of understanding extends the time allowed for the city to negotiate exclusively with City Lit. Is there a motion?
Move approval?
Is there a second? Any comments? You have your light on?
No, but Alderman Grover just asked me what slowed this down, and that gave me pause, because I'm thinking of how many developers came before this council and asked for 4 years extensions over time, and all we're asking here is for 3. And the reason being, just so everybody's question gets answered, is, we had architectural drawings that were prepared, attempt to get bids on those drawings didn't go as smoothly as we had hoped, and so that is basically the reason. And we may have an update on whether or not a contractor was selected yet.
In reference to the wine bar, or I'm sorry, or this project?
I'm sorry, you know what? I'm on another problem we're having. Anyway, on this one, it has to do basically with the architect. We had free services, totally free services, that got to be a little outrageous because we were taking up way too much time. So we felt that in order to get something done in an efficient way, we would hire one. We hired the free one, and the drawings are now done. 33 pages of drawings is what slowed things down. So, and Ms. Nyden is going to give us the details, the nitty-gritty.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Johanna Nyden, Economic Development Coordinator. I'm here tonight to give you an update on the progress of 727, 729 Howard Street and our progress towards bringing a theater to Howard Street. I'm also joined by representatives from City Lit, the theater company that we're working from, Terry McCabe and Brian Pastor. They'll say a few words after I bring everyone up to speed. So what we've been working with, as you know, is we purchased this property in February of last year, and since then we gathered a core of volunteers from the community to determine would this site at 727, 729 work for a small theater, 100 seats or so theater, and the answer is yes, it does work for a theater, and the next is figure out how you fit a theater into that space. So we've started to work with City Lit, and they'll talk a little bit about what they need out of a theater space and where their theater would grow if it were to come to Howard Street. We've done one letter of understanding, which was executed in January. We've gone through a process of designing the theater, which the drawings are in your packet. The theater now we need to put a cost to those drawings and figure out how much it actually will be to build that, and then City Lit's responsibility will be to figure out how we start to work to pay for some of that. So here's the property. It was a 2 storefronts, nondescript on Howard Street, and this is what is envisioned if this goes forward. This is a partially raised roof which would accommodate a theater use, and if it were to go even higher, this would be a second floor which could accommodate not just a theater use, but rehearsal space, office space, some second floor storage potentially, that really takes it to, makes it a much larger space. So the next steps would be to get a cost estimate. We have drawings that we can bid out, that we can get a clear understanding. We've done an initial estimate using the volunteer help that we had, which estimated that just to do this would be about $600,000, but that's very preliminary, very basic. But we want to understand what this, adding the whole entire second floor would be. and any of the other costs that Citylit has identified to be part of the Actors Equity Association, which is a very, I'll let them tell you a little bit more about that, but that's an important piece of their growth strategy. One other thing I'd like to point out is, we didn't just have an architect draw a box and say this is what the building is going to be. They actually engaged Schuler Shook, which is a well-known theater architecture firm that looks at how space is used, how the different theater equipment works in a space, and acoustically how a space is effective. So the next step would be to get those estimates, to work with CityLit as they develop a capital campaign to raise funds to pay for the portion of their build-out that's necessary for their operations, and then for us to determine what kind of terms and conditions we would want to see in a lease-to-own agreement to bring back before City Council for consideration.
Johanna, could you put the, Madam Chair, can I put the picture back, the rendering? Maybe people don't understand that that's all the same building, the one story and the two, that's, right?
It's just added on, right?
It's the same footprint, correct?
Right, but I mean that the one-story building next to it, that is part of the theater?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So I think as the drawings would indicate, that's a lobby and a small reception area where the intermission would take place. And I think it's also, I think we talked about this back in January, but CityLit is not thinking that this would just be purely performance theater. They have a whole range of programming. So one of the things that we've learned in performing arts is when you have a space that's just performance theater, you want to think about other ways to use the space to bring in other people that may not necessarily go in to see a live theater performance, but may go because there's a concert or a movie or some other use, and then discover that, oh, this is a wonderful performance that I'd like to see, and then they come back for another opportunity. So ideally, I think this is what Terry and Brian can speak to, but they want to have 7 days of programming. So this wouldn't sit dark the way if you walk in the Loop and you see the theaters downtown, that they're mostly dark except for a few nights a week when they have performances.
Anyone else? Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Nyden. It's interesting because we purchased this property a year and a half ago, not quite a year and a half ago, with the thought of controlling the development here, making something happen that we wanted to happen here. And less than a year and a half later, we're already at this point, which is, I think it exceeds our expectations, doesn't it, for what happens when a municipality buys property to control development and direct it, to be this far ahead at a year and a half, not even a year and a half later, is, I think, quite impressive. This theater will be part of the fabric of a neighborhood, and so I'm also interested in knowing what's going on in the rest of the neighborhood, namely the other side of Howard Street, and is there a way to get a sense of what Chicago's intentions and plans and investments have been on the Chicago side of this neighborhood? And see if there are ways in which we can work together to also complement what we're wanting to do here.
I can speak to that to some degree. I've been meeting regularly with the SSA manager. On the opposite street is a special service area, so I've been meeting regularly with the manager, one of the managers that works directly with the businesses there. So we've tried to work in coordination for activities and other business district development for example, the lighting of the small twinkle lights, which was a big deal on the city of Evanston side. City of Chicago followed suit, and they added twinkle lights on their side of the street. We've done corresponding planters. They're not at the level of influencing development the way we've been able to. We're the City of Evanston. We're a much more nimble organization than they are. They don't have a tool in place such as a TIF, so there's a little bit more of a challenge for them. Also, they have a lot of the same problems. They have the same property owner on their side of the street that controls a large number of the properties and acts very much in a similar way that we've worked to transform that person's behavior, but we've been much more successful than they have. So, work is being done, but it's not there yet, but definitely we've been focusing on the human capital side of things.
Sure. I just don't want to get too far ahead of where Chicago is, because, it helps our efforts on Howard Street if we're kind of on the same page with Chicago. It sounds like we mostly are.
Alderman Rainey?
Well, while this project is a lot more complex than the one in the 600 block of Howard Street, that one has moved much faster than this. And I did mention, I have it on the brain because we were supposed to hear today that a contractor was selected, and I don't know if that happened or not. But people have moved in there. I mean, and our rehab staff organized the complete rehabilitation of 2 units that are over the wine bar, and just an amazing progress, really. I don't want to say it's ahead of what I expected, because I expected miracles, and it came close. But this, I think, is absolutely the most important development east of Ridge, next to the 415 Howard Building. So just grateful for all the volunteer work that was done on getting us to this point. People like Billy Andrews gave hours of their time estimating costs and things before we actually had drawings. So that's really important. And these folks are just, so well-liked in the theater community that I just think once we get them here, we'll just be very grateful. So thanks, Johanna. You've done a great job, too.
Does the theater people want to make comments? Dave, you want to catch the light?
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Terry McCabe with CityLit. This is Brian Pastor, our managing director. I'm artistic director. Thank you for having us here to talk. In the 8 months since CityLit entered into conversations with the city of Evanston about the possibility of becoming part of the Howard Street Development Project, and especially since the official negotiations began at the end of January, CityLit has been working on 2 fronts. On the one hand, we've had a series of very productive meetings with Mike Vasilko, the project architect, and the theater consultants at Schuler Shook to discuss the theater and lobby layout, as well as other essential space needs for CityLit: backstage configuration, office space, rehearsal space, storage. One thing we've made sure to do is talk to the folks at Actors Equity Association, the union for actors and stage managers, about their standards for what they consider an adequate workspace. A theater that does not meet those standards cannot, as a general rule, house an equity production, and it's important that the Howard Street theater space be able to do so. A couple of years ago, a Chicago theater company I know spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to create a space without checking with equity. The finished space turned out to not meet their criteria in various ways, and the theater company had to find and spend tens of thousands of additional dollars to do those parts over again. The space on Howard Street will not have that problem. The second front CityLit has been working on is to evaluate and strengthen our own capacity to be a useful partner in this project. Accordingly, we have been consulting with leaders of 2 recent theater capital campaigns: Victory Gardens campaign that enabled them to renovate and move into the Biograph movie theater, and Black Ensemble Theater's campaign that enabled them to build a new facility for themselves in Uptown. They've been extremely helpful. Perhaps the key point we've learned from them is how a not-for-profit group like them and us goes about organizing and running a capital campaign. The crucial first step is a feasibility study to ascertain an amount of money it is feasible to believe we can raise in the campaign. The study is conducted by an outside consultant, not anyone who's part of CityLit, who conducts a survey of a cross-section of our audience and other supporters to gauge the possibility of financial support. The consultant doesn't raise a nickel, merely interviews these people confidentially about at what level they might be willing to contribute. All these responses are reported to us in the aggregate, so we don't know who said what specifically, and the consultant's report concludes with an estimate of how much she thinks it would be feasible for us to raise. Of course, all this happens before the campaign itself begins. The point CityLit is at presently is that we have recruited the consultant, who is waiting for a couple of pieces of information from us, but is otherwise ready to begin the interview process. She estimates we'll have her report in the vicinity of late August, at which point CityLit will have a firm idea of where it stands to begin our campaign. The board and staff of City Lit is very enthusiastic about the project, and we look forward to continuing these negotiations.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, it's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
A9, Resolution 52-R-12, authorizing the city manager to execute a contract for the purchase of real property located at 1801, 1805 Church Street. Staff recommends the approval of Resolution 52-R-12, authorizing the city manager to execute a contract for the purchase of real property located at 1801 through 1805 Church Street for an amount not to exceed $127,000 from the E-Town Community Ventures LLC. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Been moved and second. Any questions? Alderman Rainey?
Any new news from anybody? No?
Seems like we're at the same place. We're ready to go. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? A10, Ordinance 63-0-12, authorizing negotiations to sell city-owned property at 1131 Sherman. Staff recommends adoption of Ordinance 63-0-12, authorizing the city manager to negotiate the sale of a city-owned vacant lot located at 1131 Sherman Avenue to Mark Hammergren. This is for introduction.
Move approval?
It's been moved in second. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, Madam Chairman,
Okay.
I
Alderman Rainey?
I do have a question, but not about the substance of that. When we put city property up for sale, we just have to notify, I'm not sure what the regulation is anymore. Do we just notify people, like a public notice, that we're doing it? Or do we have to accept bids for it? I'm confused.
Okay.
In
Attorney
other words, do we just have to say it's for sale and we're negotiating with somebody, or what?
Madam Chair, Alderman Rainey, members of Committee Grant for our Corporation Council, we put a notice out. That is what the municipal code and our own code require. And that was
Just to
complied for in this
notify
case.
that we have property for sale.
Correct. We put the ad in the Evanston Review, and it's notice to the world.
But I understand the notice requirement, but is there's not a second piece that we have to accept the highest bid or
No.
the best use or anything
There's
like that?
there's no requirement of that kind.
We can negotiate with whoever we want. Okay, I got it.
Correct.
I thought there were two pieces. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? A11, Ordinance 64-0-12, authorizing the city manager to execute a real estate contract for the sale of 1131 Sherman Avenue. Of course, the property at 1131 Sherman Avenue to Mr. Mark Hammergren for that, and that's introduction.
Move
Is there a
approval.
motion? Okay. It's been moved in second. I'm sorry, did I get a second?
Second.
Moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
A12, Ordinance 67-0-12, approval of 2012 general obligation bond issues. Staff recommends approval of proposed ordinance number 67-0-12 for the funding year 2012 bond issuance totaling $16.22 million. The ordinance will be completed and signed after the bond sale date, which is tentatively scheduled for July 10th, 2012. Is there a motion?
Second.
Been moved in second. Are there any questions? Alderman Rainey, your light is on from before, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? A13, Ordinance 68-0-12, increasing the number of Class C liquor licenses to permit issuance to Montera Restaurant Group. The local liquor commissioner recommends adoption of ordinance 68-0-12, amending subsection 3-5-6C of the Evanston City Code of 1979 as amended to increase the number of Class C liquor licensing from 29 to 30 to permit issuance to the Montera Restaurant Group, LLC, doing business as Terra, 2676 Green Bay Road. On suspension of the rules is requested to allow for introduction and action for tonight. Is there a motion?
Second.
Then moved in second. Are there any, Alderman Rainey?
Madam Chair, today driving around Evanston and over the weekend, it is, I mean, I'm sure everybody's noticing this, but I just have to say something. This town is so alive with construction, activity, people doing things, making things, opening things, cranes in the air. It just really is very encouraging and quite a morale booster. And this is just another example of that kind of thing happening. So, good for everybody who's doing everything that they're doing. And it isn't confined to any one area. It's just all over. So when you go down Ridge and you see the old Sienna project, the focused development, I mean, the progress they are making there is just incredible. And, anybody who says that Evanston is bankrupt and, want to move out because nothing's happening here just couldn't be more wrong. And so I just wanted to congratulate everybody and wish everybody good luck who's doing all this good work.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it includes things like Darrow and Church. I mean, it's just all part of a big plan to get us moving again.
I agree. Anything else? I think we moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
So you're going to suspend the rules on that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
A18? I'm sorry, you want to say something on
No,
that?
I'm going to wait.
Okay. A18, resolutions 54-R-12, authorizing an agreement with the bonding management for TIF eligible expenses at the Evanston Plaza Shopping Center. Staff recommends the approval of Resolution 54-R-12, authorizing the city manager to execute a TIF redevelopment agreement with bonding management for an amount not to exceed $2 million for TIF-eligible expenses for the real property located at 1900 Dempster at the Evanston Plaza Shopping Center. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
It's been moved in second. Alderman Rainey.
Could our staff just have a conversation with us about this? And because I think not everybody is familiar with this.
Alderman Holmes, Alderman Rainey, members of the committee, Mr. Zalmazak and I will do a little bit of a tag team. Let me give just sort of a brief overview. As you know, on the full council agenda this evening, Alderman Braithwaite intends to request that the council remove from the table the ordinances to move forward with the TIF. In our discussions among the staff and with Alderman Braithwaite, it became clear it was important that prior to the approval of those ordinances that we come back to the council with a more specific plan that is included in the plan that's required under law with the adoption of the TIF. And so what you have before you is a resolution that we think helps put a little bit more clarity into the plan to move forward with the expenditure of the funds from the TIF. We see the TIF really in two segments. We see it as a segment to be invested in the next 7 years or so, and then we look at a time beyond that. The 7-year period is important because that is the remainder of time more or less for the Dominic's lease. And I think it's our feeling that the conclusion of that lease term is going to be a critical juncture for that center, and it makes sense to invest some money now over the next few years, but to really make sure that the corpus of the funds available for that TIF is available once that lease changes. As we've discussed previously, Dominic's Finer Foods around the Chicago area is seeing a pattern that when leases are up, Dominic's is leaving, and they're not renewing leases in locations. And so that is a very troubling pattern. And for the city of Evanston, one of the main reasons we've come to the council for the TIF is to have some latitude to deal with the center as it changes. And clearly a change from Dominic's either to another grocery store or to another use in that very large space is going to have a significant impact on the center. So our proposal with this resolution is to make very clear our intention, and that is to work with Bonnie Investment for a relatively short-term use of TIF dollars, really looking toward the longer future term of the center once the Dominic's lease either has been renewed and Dominic's continues, or if there is a change of use. So that is the purpose for the resolution. The resolution is just authorizing negotiation, so it is not approving anything other than the negotiation, and then we would come back, assuming that the TIF is approved by the City Council, come back at a future meeting with very specific expenditures.
Alderman Rainey, go ahead, and then I have Alderman Grover. Alderman Grover, you have yours on first. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Bobquist. Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you clarify for us where the $2 million comes from and how this will be structured?
Well, we do not have a recommendation as to how the deal will be structured. If you look on page 502 of your agenda packet, this is getting into a little bit of discussion we expect to have later this evening regarding the timing of the adoption of the TIF. We believe, in talking with Cook County, that if the TIF is adopted this evening, that the 2010 base year would be, Mr. Zalmazak, don't go far. The 2010 base year is the year we are looking at. So that is on the left-hand side column, which shows increment creating. So you have a black line there, which again kind of denotes that two-phase. So we anticipate between now and 2020 collecting about $3.6 million in cash from the TIF. So we're proposing with this resolution that the $2 million would be available. So we would be looking to come to the council at a later point to borrow against the revenue from the TIF in that $2 million range. So there would not be cash to pay that. But I think in listening to the discussions of the council, there was great concern that we may come back to you in a short period of time and look to borrow against the TIF a very large dollar amount. And we just don't see that makes a lot of sense. So we would come back with an agreement with Bonnie Investment in that $2 million range, would look to borrow against that, would have that money would be able to be, that loan would be able to be paid back within this time frame. Then there would be some cash available in the TIF at the conclusion of the Dominic's lease, and then we kind of have to see what the world brings. But really, this TIF is meant to do multiple things. It's meant to provide assistance to the property owner to bring the center to a level that we think is more appropriate than the market will bring to us currently. So there'll be money available to help with that cause. But really, we want to make sure that once the space for Dominic's, that is a long-term decision is made, that there be additional money for any changes that might occur at the center at that point, and then even looking further into the 23 years to make sure there's money. The council's made it clear that you're not keen on borrowing money, and I completely agree with that, and making sure that there's cash available in the TIF so that we can do a balance of borrowing and paying cash on the barrel for improvements over the extended life of the TIF is very important.
Thinking about a TIF, contemplating a TIF, asks us to think long-term, but I can't help thinking more short-term, which is the potential loss of a grocery store there, and wouldn't want to somehow, by operation of this TIF and working to the end of the Dominic's lease, find ourselves with a food desert on the west side as well. And so I think we need to be mindful of what we do to retain short-term significant grocery presence, either in this location or elsewhere, while we think about all the wonderful things that we could do with that parcel using a TIF as our economic development tool.
And that's why I think that critical juncture is that sort of almost midterm point when that lease comes up, because if we don't have tools to help us, you will hear from us later this evening that we've not had a lot of success over the last couple of weeks communicating with Dominic's. And one of those reasons is that the Dominic's chain real estate matters are managed through Safeway Canada. You look at a map of where Safeway does business in the United States, there's an island in the Midwest with Dominic's, and you have multiple states between Illinois and the other states that Safeway does business. So it doesn't take a lot to imagine that Dominic's or that holding for Safeway may change. And so this TIF is so important so that we don't have that food desert. Because if the market says, if the marketplace says, well, a grocery store is no longer going to work here, the city of Evanston needs to have the tools to step in to say, you're wrong, and we'll do what it takes to make sure if it's not a Dominic's, then another national grocery store chain. One of the reasons Dominic's is having difficulty is because of the growth of Whole Foods, the growth of Mariano's Fresh Foods. All of these stores, it's no longer just Dominic's and Jewel on every corner. The whole landscape is changing. And my recommendation as your city manager and your economic development staff is we need tools so if that day comes, we're not left flat-footed, that we can work closely with the center ownership to bring another grocery store here, deal with any changes that might occur if Dominic's changes its business model, is sold to another chain, and that this TIF will provide that flexibility.
Alderman Rainey?
Well, I think this is one of the most important projects that we've dealt with in a long time. But I also think that the retention of Dominic's is the most important thing we can focus on in the shopping center. And while I found their responses arrogant, I think there are ways around it. And I have visions of how to get around the issue of the parking issue. But instead of planning for its loss and for the possibility of a food desert, I'd like to plan for retaining them. I know on Ridge Avenue, they closed a Dominic's store and opened up in a new form, a new concept, a new Dominic's concept. So I don't think we necessarily have to count on losing Dominic's. I do think, though, that we ought to count on improving the Dominic's that we have. So that I hope we do. I hope that their arrogant response doesn't turn us off to their tenure there. And
I think one of the challenges is we have reached out. Mayor Tisdale sent a letter very specifically saying to the president of Dominic's, please talk with us so that we can help you make this the best Dominic's it can be. And the response we've got was very much a cold shoulder. So that plus what we read in the media, what we see with them coming and not renewing leases, is just the stark reality that in this instance, Dominic's Finer Foods may not be long for the area. So I agree with Alderman Grover that while at the same time we need to be helpful to the extent we can, and we have reached out and have been rebuffed, we also need to be mindful of our community needing a good grocery store at this location and having whatever tools we can to make that happen.
I agree, but I think many of us think that it is a good grocery store at the present time. And anything we can do to keep it would be good. We have lots of Dominic's around. We have a great Dominic's on Howard Street, not in our town, and on Green Bay Road. I mean, so it's not like Dominic's doesn't know us. And I think that we should, I maintain we should do everything that we can to keep them. I understand the corporate issue here, but that doesn't mean that we can't work to keep them.
And we will do everything in our power to continue to reach out to them and to continue to have a dialogue. Unfortunately, we report this evening after 2 weeks of very aggressive communication at their highest levels that they have not seemed interested in.
But the issue of parking, I think we can work around it. So I don't think that should make us paralyzed.
Well, I have to admit, Alderman Rainey, that I was turned off by their response. However, not turned off enough not to support the TIF, because I've always done that. But I do think that, I'm really disappointed that they're not cooperating and wanting to sit down and talk to us, because I think that we could be very helpful, to them. Whatever we're planning for the shopping center would benefit everyone in the shopping center, including Dominic's, and I just, why they don't see that really puzzles me. But I think that, we have to move ahead. The shopping center is very important. I still feel very strongly that we need something that's going to bring more foot traffic, more families. We should be really utilizing and taking advantage of I want to say at least 1,000, maybe more, of high school kids that pass there every day. If there was something there that attracted them, they'd have a lot more traffic in the shopping center. So, I certainly am going to support it, but I am disappointed. And I do believe that if Dominic's would leave, I think that we could find somebody else to come there. But we will all work very hard because I think we all shop there at one time or another. So I think that we'll all work hard to try to keep them. But the ball is sort of in their court as well now. So, any other comments? If not, all in favor? We had to move in a second, right? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we have one.
Madam Mayor?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, Alderman Rainey.
As Alderman in the 8th Ward, where the issue for discussion is located, and in view of the fact that I had no idea this was going to be on our agenda tonight for discussion until I opened my packet, I'm asking that we hold this matter until the meeting of the 9th for discussion. I realize it's only for discussion, but I am absolutely totally incapable of having a discussion about this because I know nothing about the situation as it exists right now. And that is not because I have not asked if something is going on and is there anything I need to know, because I keep being told, no, there is nothing going on and nobody's come to any conclusions or agreements, and then we get this. So I'm asking that it be held. And I would like the respect of my colleagues to acknowledge that I'm asking for a hold over.
All right. City Manager, do you want to make a comment?
Asking
Just that this is on in part because of Alderman Rainey's request and the request of other aldermen. There's been lots of interest in these discussions, and we have not had a chance to share any of this with the council. So we're happy to wait until July the 9th. But just to be clear, that this is on in part because of Alderman Rainey's request, because of Alderman Grover's request, because of Alderman Wilson's request, all asking for an update as to where we were with this project.
Well, I think one good way to update an alderman on this matter is like we update aldermen on all matters having to do with their ward, and that is in our weekly meetings you could discuss it, on the phone we could discuss it. This has never been discussed with me. And I don't think that this is the way to handle this when you know full well that I totally oppose this use. And I am embarrassed by the fact that it's on here and that I have to ask that it be held.
And Alderman Rainey and members of...
And I really think that the conversation should be over and that it should be held. Like I honor every alderman's request to hold something. I have never overruled a hold request.
And we will honor your request for it to be held, Alderman Rainey.
Thank you.
All right. Then that, it's APW2, cars parking too close. I didn't see anything in, or did I miss it? Did you? No.
That was a reference.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
But I don't think there was anything in our...
I didn't see anything in the back.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Grant for our Corporation Council, this was a reference that Alderman Rainey made, I believe, 4 weeks ago in response to an issue that she observed in her ward. My understanding of the reference was that the direction to city staff and to the law department was to research the available laws, specifically starting off with the Illinois Vehicle Code, to determine whether there was any laws in similarly situated jurisdictions, anything in the Illinois Vehicle Code that could address a situation where a car is essentially hemmed in by a car in front of it and a car in back of it. What I did do, Alderman Rainey, in consultation with Ricky Voss, the parking manager for the city, is review the Illinois Vehicle Code. We also reached out to our neighboring jurisdictions in an effort to find if there was any applicable legal ordinances or state statutes that spoke to this issue. Upon our investigation, we did not find any. I reviewed 511-1301 of the Illinois Vehicle Code, which speaks to stopping, standing, and parking. There are a number of subsections that talk about angled parking, parking to the roadway, parking not obstructing roadway, parking not obstructing traffic. but nothing that specifically touched upon a bumper-to-bumper situation such as the one you mentioned. As you are aware, Title 10, Chapter 4 of the City Code adopts most of the Illinois Vehicle Code with respect to stopping, standing, and parking restrictions. It's a best practice and a good, sound measure for legal compliance to adopt the Illinois Vehicle Code for purposes of enforcement in the city. That's what we've done. So at this point in time, Alderman Rainey, it's really difficult for me to find, well, it's impossible for me to find any language that I could draw upon. And in terms of considering and thinking out the enforcement and the implementation issues, it's very difficult to think that through in the absence of any language that I could find right at this particular point in time.
Alderman Rainey?
Mr. Farrar and members of the council and the city of Evanston, a woman parked in front of her house. There were no cars around. It was a holiday weekend. A car came behind her and parked perfectly legally. Car came in front of her and parked. Both cars parked close. There was no way for this woman to move her car for 3 days. The police came at my request, and we knew, they said there's no violation here. Called, ran the license plates of the 2 vehicles that were pinning her in. People were not home, went away for the weekend, whatever, no way to... I'm not looking, and the police said there's just nothing we can do. We're just him. We can't do anything. And what I was looking for was not a violation, not a fine, but a way to relocate temporarily one of the vehicles so that the car could move. And I'm thinking there could be emergency situations. Just the inconvenience of not being able to go to appointments or move your car for 3 days, for 1 day, for 3 hours if you have an appointment. And from what I understand, this is not the only person in the world that it's ever happened to. So if we relocate cars for snow shoveling, for snow plowing,
That is correct.
is there no, I mean, this would be a relocate and replace.
Well, the problem with that is it would be,
There would have to be a charge.
well, there would have to be a charge, and then due process is triggered whenever you do relocate. And it's a tow. So towing a car implicates the due process rights of that particular owner. The question is also raised, which car is more at fault, the one in behind the vehicle that's
I understand
impacted, or the one in front? There's the timing issue relative to that. I mean, while we can sympathize with the issue that's presented here, I've tried with Mr. Voss to think through an implementation scheme that could address this particular instance, and it may be a situation where we're creating other issues in an attempt to address the issue that's presented.
Every problem has a solution. I'm not convinced there isn't one for this. So are you saying I need to go to Robin Gable? Is that where the changes take place that would help in this case?
Well, I think the Illinois Vehicle Code is very consistent, very comprehensive in its regulation of stopping, standing, and parking. So generally, the Illinois Vehicle Code is looked upon in terms of uniform enforcement of traffic regulations and parking regulations throughout the state. That would probably be a very prudent course of action to consult with her and seek an amendment to the Illinois Vehicle Code.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, that concludes our agenda for this evening. The City Council meeting will convene 15 minutes after the conclusion, which means that at 25 after 7, we should be convening as a City Council. Is there a motion for adjournment? Been moved in second. All in favor? Aye. Aye.
When you
Okay, Dave, we got through that.